You know, because I'm waiting.
Looks like it's working.
It's working. We're on. Hey, everybody. My name is Kat Margulis, and I'm an author, book coach, podcaster, and host for today. Thank you, and welcome to How to Write and Publish a Travel Book. I'm excited to introduce to you like an amazing panel of experts in the publishing space. But first, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Heather Kirk, founder of KITI Social. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Heather. Heather is a Canadian entrepreneur, PR expert, and the driving force behind the success of two innovative companies, Immediate Management and KITI Social. With a passion for quality travel and lifestyle storytelling and community, Heather has established herself as a prominent figure in the ever-evolving world of digital marketing and media relations. And through her independent boutique PR firm in media, Heather gained recognition on her work for her work on behalf of major airlines, transportation companies, tourism boards. I'm sure a lot of you have worked with her. She later founded KITI Social and its mobile app to help global journalism, influencer, and PR professionals generate better publishing results quickly and organically. Online and in person, the network has helped hundreds of journalists launch and grow their careers through freelance and full-time work with bonds and brands internationally. Welcome, Heather. Thanks for putting on this event today.
Thank you, Kat, for co-hosting, and I'll be happy to speak with everyone towards the end of the session, but I know we want to dive right in. So thanks everyone for coming.
Awesome. So I know we've got a lot of journalists, writers, authors, influencers, creators here today. So obviously a lot of you are interested in writing books, and we thought it would be really cool to share, to combine our love of travel and books with an event that would help you guys write your book and figure out the best publishing path and how to do it successfully. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my panelists, and starting with Kristen Van Nest. Kristen is an American comedian and business owner based in Los Angeles, California. She's traveled to over 40 countries and lived and worked for most of her 20s in Europe and Asia, and found herself through travel. Her personal essays and satirical writing can be found on The Rumpus, McSweeney, Slackjaw, and more. And her debut memoir, Where to Nest, is coming out in April 2024, published by Rising Action. Hi, Kristen. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Excited.
Yeah, and then we've got Alexandra Brown, CEO and publisher of Rising Action. Alex has a bachelor's in communications with a major in public relations, a master of fine arts, creative writing from the University of, and I'm going to butcher this one. You want to say this one for me? I know anytime I say a word that's kind of like Scottish, my husband's always correcting me.
Don't worry, I had to learn how to say it too. Gloucestershire.
Ooh, I would never have guessed that.
Worcestershire.
Oh, that's another tough one. And she's got a creative writing PhD, or she's a creative writing PhD candidate currently at the university. So Alexandra has published 2 nonfiction books. She's a member of the Women's Fiction Writers Association. Thanks, Alex, for being here.
No problem. Sorry I was a little late.
That's good. And I also have Rachel McMillan. She's a publishing consultant, conference speaker, and literary agent with 20 years of publishing experience. Rachel is a prolific author. Her works include the Herringford and Watts Mysteries, the 3/4 time series of contemporary romance, and the Van Buren and DeLuca Mysteries. She has written several historical novels for HarperCollins, including the best-selling The London Restoration and the Mozart Code. She's also the author of Dream Plan Go, a romantic's guide to independent travel, and a very merry holiday movie guide, which explores her love of made-for-TV Christmas movies. Her upcoming works include Operation Scarlet and The Liberty Scarf for HarperCollins, and a biography of architect Sir Christopher Wren of UK publisher Pen and Sword. Welcome, Rachel. Thanks for being here today. I've also got Matt Briel. Matt is the VP of marketing at lulu.com. After nearly 2 decades leading sales and marketing teams in the media and publishing space, Matt has developed a unique passion for helping creators and entrepreneurs become more successful by leveraging books as a catalyst for opportunities and sustainable revenue. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I'm going to dive into questions. We got a lot of great panelists, and I want to make sure I get to everybody and ask you all my juicy questions. So I'm going to start with Kristen. Where to Nest is your debut memoir. Can you tell us about your journey to the bookshelf and like how did you get an agent and how did you get a publisher from there?
Yeah, sure. So prior to COVID, I was doing a bunch of things. I was writing, acting, directing, and I had a mentor, Joanna Johnson. She's the creator of Good Trouble, and the Fosters. And she was like, if you're good at one thing, they'll let you do everything you want. So just become really good at one thing. And then COVID hit and I was like, cool, I can't do any of the other things. So I guess we're doing the writing. And I always loved writing prose. I've been, like I said, published in McSweeney's and The Rumpus. So I was writing a lot of like short personal essays and satirical pieces. So at the beginning of COVID, I started working, I took a class on writing memoir, and kind of writing the proposal since memoir sells on proposal. And so I wrote that during 2020. I found my agent. I just literally cold emailed agents and luckily met mine, Mariah at DeForio. And then it was a year and a half before she found Alex, who is now my publisher. So I would say the things I learned through that process, most of the rejection reasons I got through that time were, one, it's COVID, no one's reading travel right now, which I found really interesting because they are when the book's going to come out, hopefully, like estimating when we would probably be able to start traveling again. Another was you need more of a theme. So what is the overarching theme of the book? It can't just be essays. Another was you don't have enough of a following, and that travel memoir is really hard to sell. So you have to have a huge following. And those were kind of the three main themes that came up during that process. So it was definitely a learning experience hearing those and just kind of like hoping. And then luckily I met Alex and now it's awesome.
That's awesome. And did you pivot or, did you like work with that feedback? Is there anything that you started to do that helped you sign up with Alex later?
So my agent we were very close to getting one, another publisher. And she was like, they just feel that you're not being personal enough. So I was like, oh, okay. So I went back in and made edits within 24 hours and she resent it out. Still didn't work, but at least I was like, okay, I feel like, like those people are probably more knowledgeable. They read proposals all the time. You have to trust what they're telling you. So like, I think a huge part is understanding what you need to fix and being open to notes. So if there's an issue that someone's bumping up against, I'm going to trust their judgment on that. And I think it made my proposal stronger. So.
Awesome. And yeah, because you were going through an agent. So you had a proposal to get the agent. You didn't just do a standard submission package and you knew to do that.
Yeah. So my friend had published a travel memoir a couple years prior. And so this was actually my second time going through that process. The first time I went through it, well, this would be now like 7 years ago. I wrote one that was like kind of a little bit more stories on how the world worked from a comedic tone. But that one didn't have any traction. But through that experience, my friend, like I got to see what her proposal looked like. And I got to kind of see like how she approached the process. And so I knew kind of like what the structure of a proposal was. And I'd been through the like heart-wrenching, okay, no one wants this. And so I'm like, it's COVID, it's already sad. Let's get sadder. Let's go. So I was like, let's try this again.
Awesome. So, I mean, I heard a couple of things already, but I'm still going to ask you this question. What makes for a memorable travel memoir or a travel memoir that sells, whether to a publisher or eventually to a larger audience?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have like a theme that goes through it. Like, what is the actual topic? And from working on other nonfiction, I have another book coming out with that, Alex, later. The advice I've always gotten is like, what is the theme? Like, you need to be drilling home a specific idea, and that needs to come through your entire proposal. So sometimes it feels a little repetitive, right, when you're writing your memoir proposal, because you're like, didn't I already say this? But you need to keep saying it so that it's very clear, hey, I have like one message that I want to get through to the reader, and every chapter of the book kind of needs to support that message.
Love it. Love it. So one last question for now. What's your advice, your top advice for authors when it comes to getting a book deal, particularly in the nonfiction travel memoir space?
I think that now more than ever, and I hate saying this, but it's important to have like, get yourself out there and have a following. There was an article that came out a week ago about literary it girls, and I was reading it and I'm like, oh, these are just influencers who now have book deals. So I think the market has shifted a lot, because it's not just about authors, it's about also all these other people who they already have a built-in audience. They already have people who want to buy something from them. So if you can become part of that and kind of build your voice and build credibility in who you are online in advance, that is only going to help you, and is extra important in the nonfiction space. If you're nervous, like you don't like being in front of the camera and stuff, you need to think about what are other ways that you can kind of build that. Is it like building a blog? Is it writing tweets? Is it something that's more written versus on camera? But it's really important. My friend who sold her book, she had a blog with like 150,000 impressions. So like, think about other ways and tailor to your skills what you think you might be good at. But it's more important than ever to kind of, sadly, think about skills outside of just writing the book. Yeah, so I advise for that.
On the one hand, as an author myself, I find it disheartening. And I mean, especially like with fiction, in the fiction space, I work with a lot of writers in nonfiction and fiction too, that they may not be so face forward, or they may be a little bit more reclusive. They might be your more stereotypical writer. And so, you know, I feel like, oh, there's so many amazing talents that might not get picked up for some of those reasons. On the other hand, like, it behooves everybody to be really great at sales and selling yourself and growing your platform and your audience, because when the book comes out, it'll be that much more successful. And you can't always count on the publisher, and we can go into the weeds on that later, but you know, how much support you'll get from your publisher kind of depends on a lot of different things. Again, won't get into the weeds on that, but yeah, so it's kind of like there's the pros and the cons, that it's definitely going to help later getting good at that now.
And yeah, and I've heard, sadly, horror stories from other author friends where, you know, one editor bought their book and then that editor left the company. And so now they have a new editor who doesn't care about their book, who doesn't get credit if the book performs well. And they're kind of in this situation where they're like, well, now marketing is like almost 100% on me. What do I do? And the earlier you can start preparing that marketing, that's going to help you with every single book that ever comes out. It's not just about book one, it's about book two, it's about book 10. And so I think it's important to start thinking about that process right now.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Kristen. I love that. I got really excited about the idea of having you on and your publisher, Alex, on, so I could really get behind the curtains around, you know, what inspires a publisher to pick up an author, and just kind of hearing about your relationship and your dynamics. So thank you both for being on the same panel today. I really appreciate it. Alex, you must get hundreds of submissions a year, maybe even a month. What stood out? A week? Oh God.
Yeah.
What stood out to you about Kristen's pitch for Where to Nest?
So for me, I think every time I acquire a book, it really comes down to personal connection. And I know that's not anything people want to hear ever, but as the key marketer, salesperson, the one coordinating everything for the book, you definitely want someone to have a connection to your work. And like Kristen just mentioned with her friend, you know, if you get an editor that doesn't care, it kind of falls off the wagon a bit. And so for me, I immediately, like when I saw it, was like, oh yeah, I remember being 25 and my friend being like, you need to read this book by Kristen Newman, funny enough, same first name, who wrote What I Was Doing While You Were Breeding. And it was an insanely amazing travel memoir about, oh, funny enough, Kristen Newman has kids now, so I'm just like, come on, Kristen Newman, you went back on your book title, but okay. But no, she would always talk about just like, you know, a different path for women, basically, because, you know, even though we have obviously come a long way from where we were, we're still not 100% there yet. And I think, you know, we're still coming up against those norms, if you will, that, you know, as women, we're supposed to have kids and get married and then hang out, and then maybe do our career or maybe travel. And so for me, when I see things that are a different path for women, and it's not just women, men have those you know, things pushed onto them as well, those norms. And so it's for anyone really who can connect to trying something different. That doesn't mean that the conventional path of having kids and family aren't it, but maybe you're doing it later in your life, or you're not interested at all. And so I think, like, for me, as a person with no kids and travels all the time, it's like, oh, this is it. So that personal connection of like something from my past and then also my current state. And then on top of that being like, what do we have in the market right now that are, you know, providing that resource for younger people? And so that was really it for me when I read this. Also, it was well written and funny and, you know, all of the key technical things that you're looking for. And yeah, that proposal was very well done. The proposal is super important. Just very important.
Yeah. I have to ask you a question about that, but I do see questions in the Q&A. So guys, just letting you know, there is going to be time for Q&A, for audience Q&A. So please do send Q&As and questions in the chat, and I will absolutely make time to get to that. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. So what do you say, what would you say are like your top 3 things that you're looking for when you get a query, a submission, a proposal?
For nonfiction or fiction, or both, or just in general?
Let's start with nonfiction.
Okay. Nonfiction, it's a unique take on something. And it's very difficult now. We, like, all the original ideas have been done. So it's a bringing a modernized take on, you know, some sort of, like, you know, obviously travel memoir has been done, like it's been done, but why are you as the author the best person to tell it? What's the unique piece of it? I did look at platform. I'm a weirdo. Platform, like Kristen was giving a whole bunch of good ideas of how to like build your platform. Right now we have this whole kick in publishing where it's like social media, social media, social media. That's not big for me. Like Substack is a cool resource, you know, if you want to do a weekly newsletter, all of those things where people who are very interested in you and your writing can have access to you. It doesn't mean you have to live your life on social media. And it also doesn't mean that you need to, you know, publicly state anything personal about yourself on social media. I very much want to get that across to everyone, because there's this weird thing where we're all micro influencers now because we have an Instagram. And so it's like, oh, I need to come out on social media. You don't. That is not the move. But it's like some sort of, you know, marketing plan that's in the proposal. Like, it's basically showing me that you're going to be a partner with me. Because like, maybe I'm a little different for an independent publisher, but marketing is super important to me because Kat, you read out my background is PR and marketing. And so how is anyone going to buy your product if they don't know about it? I apply that to books. So our mid list and our lead titles all get a base package of marketing because it's important. And then we do, build upon that. But I can only do so much. And I can tell you that one of the best authors that did the best with us so far is a good marketer. And so that marketing piece in the nonfiction proposal was really important to me because it's signaling to me that I'm not doing everything by myself. You can throw money at things, but money isn't where it's at. It's personal connection and word of mouth. And while again, you need all three channels working together, earned, owned, and paid media, which is a marketing term, you have to have the author really working on those earned and owned channels because it's theirs, it's them, it's representing them. So for us, in the nonfiction piece, that's for fiction too, to be honest with you. It's anytime someone mentions a little piece of marketing in their query letter, I'm like, okay, you've done your research. So yeah, for nonfiction, that was really big. As well as you read out Kristen's bylines. That's a really cool thing for nonfiction to have bylines because it's you've been professionally edited before, your work is publicly accessible, all of those things that really stand out to me as a publisher. Again, platform wasn't whoa, but if you have a platform, sweet. I'm not gonna say no to a TikTok following, but for me, I buy books that I love and am passionate about because I think that passion sort of shows through in marketing when you're excited about something. So if I'm excited, I can hopefully get the rest of the world excited as well.
Yeah, and as somebody who has to then sell it to retailers, right? Mm-hmm. Do they care about platform and numbers? Is that essential to them, or they just need to know that you as a publisher and the author, you feel really confident can market it?
So with retailers, it's really important that you have a marketing strategy in place. They also want to know how much money as a publisher we're putting into it. So if we're paying 30,000 US, which might sound like a lot of money, but it's not, into a marketing campaign, they want to know that. They have minimums. If you're coming with a book and you're like, I have $3,000 to invest in marketing for this book, they're probably not going to put your book on the shelf. It's very common with editorial reviews, which I don't think people know. Publishers Weekly wants a book that has a $30K budget behind it before they'll even review it for an editorial review. Yeah, so there's a lot of things nuances in the back that we do have to disclose to. Obviously, editorial reviews. On top of that, retailers. We have a sales team. We have 2 sales teams that we work with. One on the library academic side, and then one on the academic library and indie bookstores, and then big chain retailers. Oh my gosh, there's so many. So we have to provide them every single little piece of marketing, publicity, anything that comes up, anything that's going to get the buyer into their store. So TikTok, yes, unfortunately is dominating us when it comes. They have book.
Did you see my face when you said that?
I saw it. I was like, Book Talk is dominating our space right now. They have Book Talk tables in Barnes and Noble. They have Book Talk tables here in Canada. It's steamy Book Talk, regular Book Talk, fantasy Book Talk. There's a table for every Book Talk stream. So you can't underestimate Book Talk. I myself am a book talker, so I have given into the trend. Yeah, that's Book Talk is over everything right now. It's just the trend right now. It'll change. They always do.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
The Q&A chat is blowing up, so I'm definitely going to make more room for you guys. I promise. I'm going to make my questions a little bit faster so we get to you guys. I think I just want to ask you, Alex, one last question, because you do accept agented submissions and unagented. Like,
Yes.
is there any like tips or advice for people like on that question, as far as you know, I don't know. Is there something there that I don't even know to ask?
You should know.
You give it equal weight, because I know a lot of
I give it
publishers will
equal
not
weight.
accept unagented submissions.
I
So
think it's-
first of all,
Yeah.
most doors are closed without an agent.
Yeah.
Is
I don't
it-
think any other weight, like it's not an agented submission goes above an unagented submission. To be completely honest with you, the reason why publishers are not open to unagented submission is because we get inundated. Like I have to close for submissions for unagented side more often than I do agented, because I just get more of them. And a lot of times it's like, oh, hey, let me just like put this out into like the universe, and maybe it's not ready. When you get an agented submission, you know those agents have gone through it. You know, like some of those agents have worked with them on their book for, if it's fiction, like I know it's gone through edits. So I also weigh like how much time you know, on the editing side for my staff it's going to be, because I have a counterpart who does all of the production side of everything, and it's kind of mean when I'm like, here you go, drop, but that doesn't mean anything. I do like to see books that are not first drafts, because if it's a first draft, there's probably a 0.001% chance I will ever buy it, because I know a first draft when I see it. Unfortunately for my authors, I have a PhD in creative writing, so I know what they look like. No, there's no weight above either or. It's literally about the quality of the writing and the uniqueness of the idea. That's what I live on.
Love it. Thank you. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Rachel, you're both an author and a literary agent.
Yeah.
What are agents looking for in authors? Is that any different from what a publisher is looking for?
I think so. And I think in many cases, it's harder to get an agent than a first book deal, because we have no success until you do. So I have to be very cautious about the authors that I sign, because that final pub board only takes about 20% of all the books that make it to that stage. So I have to think ahead. So I would say it's pretty similar to a lot of what Alex said. But you're taking someone's entire career and creative drive into your hands, and I don't take that lightly. So I'm very selective, especially when it comes to asking for what we call in the industry a full. I get a lot of queries. I get hundreds a week. It's very rare I'll ask for a full manuscript, because, don't have a ton of time. I always have people going, including the 30 clients I'm already representing. So yeah.
Yeah. What can authors do to have a better chance at acquiring an agent compared to like what the tips might be for getting a publisher?
So a lot of it is similar. I would say, like Alex said, especially for nonfiction, for travel, is to start macro, have a platform, have something that is branded that and work down from there. Get some experience where you're a name. Two examples that I like to use is the Everywhereist on Twitter, Geraldine. She had written a travel memoir a few years ago, but last year or the year before, she had a blog post about a bad restaurant experience in Italy explode and go viral, and she got a bigger deal after that. And then the other example I like to use is someone who loves Instagram and TikTok, especially for travel, is Helene Sula. Helene in between. She was actually approached by Random House because she is such an affluent travel blogger. So it's not this way in every genre of nonfiction or fiction, but in both arenas, I like to see that you have some kind of platform or are working on it. Obviously, the reason it's so big in nonfiction is not agents pulling this out of our hat. I often have acquisition editors get really excited about a project. It goes through their editorial committees, but once once it meets that last publishing board with the president, vice president, marketing, sales, it's the numbers that make or break it. So if it's between two books and someone has a larger platform, that's going to be a huge thing. The other thing is everything is oversaturated right now. So you need to have an amazing idea of where you fit in the publishing industry. You need to read a lot, and it needs to be reflected in your query and or proposal. And the perfect books usually fit the zeitgeist of the marketplace. So they show that they're going to be a proven seller, but also have a unique hook that shows that they can fill a gap. And that's usually really hard to find that intersection, but it's the key component to standing out with agents and or editors, I find.
Love it. I love that. So, okay, maybe I'm gonna jump to my,
Yeah.
starting things out of my head. I kind of like, because I feel like maybe there's a lot of people in the audience who have some knowledge about, maybe they've already danced with submissions, maybe they've just been working on their manuscript. So for people who are pretty new and fresh to this, like, can you maybe just explain to them as an agent, as somebody who's coaching other authors through this process, like what are, you know, there are like, you know, tips for a great query letter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting proposals? Are you getting queries that you're like, okay, you don't even know, you need to be sending me a proposal, not a query submission? Can you maybe like walk people through what would be required of them for a nonfiction travel memoir?
Yeah, so I would say that 75% of the queries I get are not ever going to be competition, because I get pitched stuff that I don't represent, and I get pitched stuff through Twitter or Instagram DMs. People just not spending. I actually, before I got my first agent, I studied the industry for 5 years before I sent my first submission. And it's so easy to Google how to write a query letter and proposal. So every agent is going to be different, and every place on query tracker, which is what a lot of agents use right now to sort through manuscripts, is going to be different. You can stand out just by personalizing to what each agent wants. Use Publishers Marketplace, use Publishers Weekly, use websites like Query Shark by Janet Reed, and Google people like Jane Friedman who walks you through it. Attend conferences like this one. Find conferences that have virtual agent pitching sessions, because you might not be able to travel to all these writers' conferences, but I get to be face to face with you. And above all, while you're searching, read and follow agents that you are interested in and comment on their things, because often some of the clients I've signed, I've gone after them. So really get a good idea. For a travel memoir, it's a lot of what Alex said. You're going to want to have a really good theme. You're going to want to show that it's different. You're going to want to have a breakdown chapter by chapter with a few key points and why they are essential to your book. You're going to want to have a marketing overview, and you're going to want to have amazing comp titles. I had a travel book come out that's all about my passion for solo traveling. And it was actually born of a Facebook post that had 500 comments from different people asking, oh my gosh, did you ever go and sit next to that guy on your trip? That caught the attention of editors who were like, people are really invested in this story. So find a go around. Find a way that you can fit into a space. I also was able to get, and again, talking about my writing life, a place within an already established travel franchise from HarperCollins doing a ghost written book, which is about travel, just because I followed what imprint they had recently acquired. So social media can be intimidating, but it can also be your best friend. So research, be on top of who the big travel writers are, who represents them, what publishers are looking for, and try to keep an eye. If you can just Google, the world is your oyster. And honestly, so many submissions I get couldn't have been solved with a quick Google. But show your voice too, because you really you won't have the opportunity to have everyone at a publishing board read your manuscript. Most people who make the decision will never actually read your writing. So you have an opportunity to hook an agent and an editor with a really voicey, wonderful, unique opening paragraph. And my final thing on this is to treat it like a business document, because it is what we will use as agents and then as editors to sell your book through each process. Your comp titles inform the cover, your word count informs your advance, and all of the little marketing things you do and the people you have as potential endorsers, people you're connected with, people you know, actually help us to the very end user, which is what people use in packages and salespeople use in packages to sell to trade retailers, Costco, Sam's Club in America, Target, that kind of thing. So be very savvy and spend a lot of time just learning everything. The manuscript is only one part of your publishing career. And unfortunately, it's not the biggest part often.
That is gold. Thank you for that. Your manuscript is not the only part. Really, really, really great advice. Thank you, Rachel. Matt, I'm super excited to have you on. I was really excited because, as an author myself, I know, and working with writers, I know how tough it is to get an agent. And then I know how tough it is to get a book deal, even with an agent. It makes me so happy to know that there are other ways to get something you're passionate about out into the world. So it's really exciting to see what's happening in the space of self-publishing, and you're definitely an expert at that. So I'd love to hear from you. Why should authors consider self-publishing as a path to publishing their book?
Yeah, I think everybody's done a great job of making my case for me to a degree. I mean, it's if you're a first-time author, it is daunting, and these panels are amazing, and you have amazing people on these panels. But again, if this is your first time and you hear a lot of this, you might think, man, I don't know. This is a strong commitment to get this content out in the world. And they're talking about proposals and marketing plans and sales plans and this and that and the other. And I just wanted to put a book out in the world about my travels to Bangkok last year or whatever it might be. So I think to a degree, one of the strongest reasons somebody should consider self-publishing is there's no barriers to entry. And that's good and bad. And I won't get into that here. But at the end of the day, there are no barriers to entry for self-publishing. And you need to come to that with, some really good research and things like that. But having no barriers to entry is really important, not only for first-time authors and creators, but, that applies across the board for things like marginalized communities, authors that are BIPOC, things like that. So there's a lot of barriers to entry in the traditional publishing world, including the hybrid publishing world. So number one would be no barriers to entry. Number two, you have total creative control over what you're doing and the output of that. There's a lot of control that gets handed over to a publisher, oftentimes for the better. Again, don't get me wrong. I think, there are reasons why that's in place. There's reasons why they have gatekeepers and people who do those things. But, sometimes that's also a big barrier for people or a mental barrier, I should say, is I put all this effort and work into something like a travel book or something along those lines, where it's probably very heavy with photographs. It's probably very heavy with personal experiences and opinions and things like that. And so that can be tough sometimes to turn that over to somebody and have them potentially chop it up and then hand you something back that doesn't look like what you handed them. Again, in many cases, that's for the better. Doesn't make it any easier to process, regardless. I'd say thirdly, and what we're seeing the most of right now is, at the end of the day, most math will show you that you can make more money self-publishing if that's your goal, and you work hard at it and you have a very solid and strategic marketing and sales plan. So I think there's a lot of great reasons for somebody to self-publish, just as many reasons to submit to a traditional publisher. But the last one I would say, and the one that we're most excited about and where we've been seeing a lot of traction, is you have the ability to sell your book directly to your fans and your readers. And so the one thing that everybody on this panel has agreed on, and I'll restate until the day that I die, is that you have to build your own audience and you have to start somewhere. And even for those on here that maybe only have 15 followers, 100 followers, 1,000 followers. It doesn't matter. You have to keep building that audience and build it and build it and build it. The conundrum or the paradox there is when you get to the point where you feel like you have a massive audience, 100,000, 500,000, doesn't matter, whatever it is, you hit that fork in the road and you go, okay, I might be able to draw the attention of an agent, of a publisher at this point, because I have this massive audience and I know I've got some pretty good quality content, but now I have to make the decision. Do I want to hand that over to them, or do I want to actually go directly to my audience and put this product into the market? So the ability to sell direct is something that you can only get when self-publishing for the most part. Those would be my reasons.
Yeah, I love it. I work with a lot of writers on this, and I'm not partial, I'm like, I just would like to be very clear on desired outcomes. So I think that's really
That's right.
important, is getting really clear, what is your end goal here? And then finding that there's a different publishing path for different outcomes.
That's right.
And so in the back end, I kind of know, and they know too, what it's going to take to be successful as a self-published author. And some people are up to it, and some people would like to have more hand holding. But I'd love to hear from you, because you're in that space and you're seeing what's working, what's not working, and who's succeeding and who's not succeeding. Yes, there's no barriers to entry, and maybe some people are going to be more successful at it than others. Who are you seeing succeed at it? What's it going to take to succeed as a self-published author?
Yeah. First and foremost, you have to have a very strong desire to be successful with your book, to go at it the self-publishing route. Don't think that you're just going to throw it up on Amazon or KDP or something like that and walk away from it, and then, money's going to come rolling in, or people are going to start contacting you for interviews or things like that. So you have to have a very strong commitment to your project and to your audience. But I would say the four things that we see that are most common that you really should have if you want to be successful as a self-published author. Number one, like you alluded to, is you've got to have clear goals for your project. Why are you doing this? What is your hopeful outcome here? Are you doing this because you want to be, famous for being a travel writer and for traveling the world and bringing these stories to people? If so, self-publishing might not be your best route. But understanding those goals, are you really just trying to make money so that you can fund other projects? Are you trying to do this to further your brand? Whatever it is that you might be working on behind the scenes outside of just being a travel writer, things like that. So having very clear goals for why you're doing this book, why you want to put it out in the world, is the very first step. Again, you have to have attention to detail and the ability to manage multiple people and efforts at once, because what a publisher does for you, even a hybrid publisher, is they take on that responsibility of dealing with the editing, the cover design, some of the marketing plan, all those other things. And when you self-publish, you do that. It's like being the contractor of your own home remodeling project. You're dealing with the plumber, you're dealing with the tile guy, you're dealing with the drywall person, you're dealing with the painters. So you have to have that aptitude and that desire to manage those things. It can be done. It's not to scare you away from it, but you have to go into it knowing that you're in total control. You have to manage those efforts and those processes. You have to have a commitment, like I said, to building your audience. If you're not in it to build an audience, if you don't have that in you, if you're one of those people that is not very public, or like Alex said, does not enjoy hanging out on social media and putting their personal life out there. If you're like me and you're not that person at an event, even though I go to one like every 2 weeks, I'm not the person that's going to walk up to you and be like, hey, how's it going? And shake your hand. I'm fairly well introverted. So it's hard to build an audience when you have those things about you that are navigating your personal aura. So know that, but know this too, whether you go self-publishing or traditional or hybrid or any other route, you have to be able to build an audience, and you need to be doing that already. And then lastly, again, everybody will agree, you got to have a marketing strategy. You have to, whether you like it or not, do some of your own marketing, if not all of it, because even if you do get a traditional publishing deal, you're still going to be doing a bunch of your own marketing, whether you like it or not. And if you can't get comfortable with that, if you can't find a way to get over that speed bump, whether that's through working with friends who might be marketers, or attending marketing conferences, or immersing yourself in some other way to learn marketing tactics and strategies, you're going to have a very tough go of it.
Love it. This may have the same answers as your previous, and if so, I'll just jump to the audience. But is there, what are some things that authors can do to set themselves up for success ahead of self-publishing? Like, what are some things that you know that they need to be doing, or they will need to do, that they don't even have a clue at this stage that's going to need to happen?
Similar answers to what I just gave, but there's
Yeah.
a few I'd throw in there that a lot of people never think about, and it makes the process go faster and smoother, but it also will set you up for success in the long run. One is something that Rachel referred to. You need to do audience research. So you need to be building your own audience, and you know who they are because you're out there attracting them every day on whatever platforms you're participating on. But you also need to do audience research into people who might not be following you right now, but they are in that chosen genre of yours, whether that's travel writing or epic, vampire, romance, fantasy. It doesn't matter. You need to be out there doing research on that audience to understand what are they reading, where are they hanging out, so that later on when I need to go market my book, I know where to find them. Right down to what kinds of books are they actually reading, and by that I mean physical. Is my chosen genre or audience, are they ebook only? Will they even buy a print book from me? And if I'm doing a travel memoir, ebook is probably not the best format to put that out there in. You can do it, of course, but so again, understanding what your audience likes, reads, will purchase. You want to build super fans, and you can't do that unless you know right down to that minute detail, who your audience is and what they like and what they'll read and what they'll buy. And then again, just to harp on this a little bit more, you never stop marketing. You just don't. I mean, you have pre-marketing, you have launch marketing, you have post-launch marketing, you have 3 years after the launch marketing. Like, you just can't stop marketing, period. Like, that is the number one, I think, thing that you have to bring to the table for success.
Love it. Thanks, Matt. So I'm going to jump to some audience questions. This was really cool, again, for people who are still pretty fresh and new to publishing a book. You're hearing traditional publishing, you're hearing self-publishing, and there is a whole gamut of options in between, right? And including pay to play and vanity presses and hybrid and all of that. Maybe Matt and Alex, can you help? Can you just maybe, so I guess the audience question is, do we have to put money towards having our book published with a publisher?
No, unless it's a vanity press or a hybrid publisher. If any sort of publisher is trying to pass themselves off as a reputable publisher, traditional reputable publisher, they're not asking you for money. And I make that very clear in my contracts that I have with authors. Again, whether unagented or agented, it's still in there. It's a clause of just like an outline of what we're going to do and what we're going to pay for in terms of marketing, and what we ask the author to do. And what we ask the author to do is nothing paid. If they want to do paid, we are definitely around to, in terms of marketing, again, you're not paying, there should be no paying for editorial, there should be no paying for cover design if you are giving your rights and percentages to a publisher. But self-publishing is very different. So I will toss that over to someone else on that one.
Yeah, and maybe Matt, you can just briefly speak into, I mean, there are also likewise a lot of different self-publishing platforms. And so how does somebody choose the self-publishing platform that's right for them?
Yeah, Alex is right too. Even for hybrid publishing and vanity publishing, which might sound the same, but they're not. If you're asked for money for something, you need to be very clear and contractual about what you're getting for that money. And you should think very long and hard about whether that's actually the route you want to take. Doesn't mean you can't get a good book to market using a hybrid or a vanity publisher, although you just need to advance with trepidation. For self-publishing, yes, you are putting money up front because, again, in that situation, you're the contractor of that project. Again, it's just like remodeling your bathroom or something. You're going to have to put money up front. And honestly, self-publishing is the DIY route, but we'll tell people all day long, you should contract with an editor. You should find somebody to help you with your work. Just because you know the difference between a colon and a semicolon, that doesn't make you an editor. You really should find somebody to help you with this stuff. Same with cover design. I mean, how many books go unpurchased because the cover's total dumpster fire? You've got to pay money for good quality work. Will it break the bank? No, absolutely not. It definitely won't. And there's plenty of resources you can find out there to help you understand just how much you should be paying for good editing, good cover design, good formatting, even good marketing for that matter. There are resources to help you do some of that on your own, but self-publishing, you're going to have to put some of that money up front. And there are some self-publishing platforms that will require money up front to create an account or upload your title, or, you know, some of those other things. I think ourselves and Amazon might be the only ones that don't require you to pay any money for an account or to upload any titles or anything like that. So the rest of them will require some other fees associated with whatever you're paying to have your book actually produced.
Can I just jump in and say on the just for new authors, never pay an agent money. If an agent asks for money up front, they are not a real agent. Agents only get paid when we sell your work, and then it should be the traditional 15%. And if possible, unless it's a huge agency, make sure that the splitting of your 85% and that the agent's 15% are done at the publisher level, so that the agent is not the in-between and the one responsible for getting your portion. So all of my clients, they immediately get their direct deposits or their checks for their 85% from the publishers we work with. If I worked for a huge New York agency, that might be different. They have their own accounting departments. But if an agent wants money from you, they are not legit. Just run away. Don't do that.
I love it. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Anonymous, can you share names of publishing companies who publish travel books? That might be a bit specific, but could you, Rachel, and anybody else who wants to jump in, maybe share some places that, you know, for people who are specifically interested in travel, where can they find agents? Where can they find publishers? Because I know that there's just a gazillion of them. Like, where do you
And
even
everywhere
begin?
has imprints. I would say one of the best things you can do is buy a month subscription to Publishers Marketplace and Publishers Weekly and search your little heart's content. You can search every deal maker. You can search any editor or agent who has worked in travel, who has worked in travel memoir, and just do a deep dive. Just spend a weekend researching everything. It's worth the upfront money to do that. It really is a case of how many people do not represent travel. I mean, it's such a wide variety of stuff. So there are fewer specific travel memoir publishers, but all of the major 5, HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House, etc., have imprints that will do travel. I would also say always follow your favorite travel writers. If you do not have one who's been published, find some at your library, because tip here, you, whether you're self-published or traditionally published, will want endorsers and blurbs for your books. And you as the author, whether traditional or self-published, will also almost always be responsible for that. And a good quote will be great. So one way to do this is to read some amazing books and gush on those people on social, follow them, so that you don't come out of nowhere when you say, hey, I've got this great travel book. I'm a huge fan of yours. You'd be really doing me a solid if I could get a cover quote from you.
Love it. Love it. Oh, I still have so many questions. I know the audience has so many questions. We might have to do this again, Heather. But I really want to squeeze one more in. I don't know if this thing is going to shut down on us. Okay, I'm going to resist. Maybe if we have time, I'll ask for one more, but I just want to make sure I thank everybody and I don't hold anybody on past our allotted time. So thank you so much, Matt and Rachel and Kristen and Alex, for being here and sharing so many insightful tips on writing and publishing and what it's going to take and what's available to people and where they can get more information. I think if you guys are able to post in the chat, maybe feel free to put your handles in there. And you guys are, of course, welcome, and I encourage you to follow them on their various platforms, and stay tuned for upcoming events with myself and also with Heather and KITI Social. Heather, you want to share some words as well? Oh, you're on mute.
thank you for that. I wanted to start with a very big thank you to you, Kat, and to the panelists, and for everybody who are joining. This is the first time we've embarked on this, and there's a lot of firsts for KITI Social in general. Very excited to have relaunched the platform and our social app. Excuse my little dog here. Hang on, come here, Oliver. So yeah, just to talk a little bit about the platform. We've got a mobile app where people can check into different locations to connect with others, posting what their interests are, what they're looking for in stories, so that we can generate more organic, on the fly, authentic content that's not fettered by gatekeepers, and really develop really great stories. So essentially there's 3 levels of access to the KITI. There's Curious, which is free for everyone. You can create a profile to promote yourself, your outlets, and there's Active and Wild, which are increasingly more sophisticated levels of content that go deeper into the profession, which are paid. And we have a blog called Instinct, which again is another really great place for people to contribute to the KITI. And again, hopefully get something back in return through more awareness of you, your brand, your story, your voice. On the site, we have job opportunities, we have a marketplace to connect with brands. All of the tools are there, I think, for the profession to do a better job of generating great content and connecting with others who can help facilitate that. So the tools are there, and it's really up to our community to determine how they want to use them. So this session was a great test. And if there's anything that you would like to see from KITI Social, please let me know. We have a great social following. We're keen to amplify your stories and content. So feel free to post. If you have questions about how it works, I'm here and available and really eager to talk with everyone. So thank you. And thank you, Kat. You've been a tremendous help and support and instigator and accountability cop for me as we've re-embarked on the KITI journey. So thank you. And thank you again to all the panelists and everyone who's participated.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. Now my head is already starting to go into all the ways that KITI can support people with writing their books, meeting people on sites, and organizing itineraries. And I think it's kind of opening a whole bunch of new doors today for what's possible with people in the KITI and in publishing, and a great opportunity to meet, people who are also interested in writing travel books and putting out travel books eventually. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. Looking forward to staying in touch with you. And yeah, absolutely follow each of these amazing people here, because they are so knowledgeable and just great people. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I really appreciate each one of you. Thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks. We'll be in touch. Stay tuned. More to come.
Thank you.
See you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.